Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on the 25th of May 2019, and actually it's being broadcast in Tokyo, Japan, and I'm going to meet some wonderful people who are associated with QHHT and who are also involved with the translation of first of all the history of God whilst I'm over here as well. So I'm delighted to be able to meet these people both again and for the first time. And thank you, Kevin Moore, again for transmitting the World Satsanga on his YouTube channel, the More Talk and the More Show. It's always a delight to be able to work with Kevin and his ability to reach further and farther with this particular modality of broadcasting. Thank you. Okay, so we've got quite a lot to do today in terms of questions, but the first thing I want to do is talk about what dementia is and how it's caused. There's a lot of people around me at the moment are experiencing, shall I say, dementia in terms of their parents or loved ones, for instance, and lots of them have asked the question of what it's all about. This includes things like Alzheimer's and the various different forms that dementia does come in. Well, basically, dementia in its worst case is very obvious, in so much as, from a spiritual perspective, the individual who we consider to be our loved one or our parent or our friend, whilst we're incarnating this particular incarnation, is no longer there. We don't feel their personality, we don't feel their spirit, so to speak. We just see somebody who is, or a body that communicates with us. And sometimes they focus on us and sometimes they don't. The worse, or should I say, the longer they've been experiencing dementia, the more difficulty they have in terms of understanding who we are and where we come from. Even if we're their children, for instance, it's most difficult. And including things like understanding and remembering things that happened 30 seconds or 3 or 4 minutes ago. Those individuals who experience dementia in a limited sense, that being in terms of the longevity the dementia has been with them, may operate quite normally, apparently, specifically to those who they don't see very often. So, for instance, if you are living away from your parents' home, and your parents are still living at home, or one of your parents is still living at home, and you have two parents still, and one parent is perfectly fine and the other parent has dementia, the parent who is perfectly fine will be saying that their partner is forgetful all the time, asks the same questions all the time, and has difficulty in remembering things, and is quite aggressive as a result of that. And then you as a child will come along once in a while, either you'll telephone them or you'll go and visit them, and they'll be perfectly compos mentis, they'll be totally focused. And that's because you do provide a focus. As an individual, you are not in part of the background. With the partner, who's there all the time, becomes part of the background, and so the things that or the levels of interaction with that partner start to become part of the background, and so non-consequential. So it doesn't create the focus for that individual. Whereas when you, as the child, comes along, you create a focus, and so therefore the person or the parent with dementia starts to remember things straight away, starts to understand who you are, what you're there for, and even down to conversations that you've had sort of 30-40 seconds ago. But the longer that you are there, you start to become more part of the background again, and then that's when things start to get repeated and they start to forget things. So what is this focus, and what is dementia? What is it all about? Well, it's all about really a way in which a particular aspect or soul has decided to leave the body. If you remember, there's a number of different termination junctures which we can have, up to 5, and the 5th one includes the final demise of the human form and the departure of the projected aspect from the true energetic self, which we sometimes call a Godhead or Oversoul or higher self, and the aspect being called a soul in an individualized unit of sentience and energy from the true energetic self, removes itself from that particular body, that vehicle that is experiencing this particular environment for a particular moment in space or time. And so that particular entity then sort of moves out, and the body dies. Now, with dementia, it's a case of there is a no longer a need to be incarnate. The expectations and the goals of the life plan have been, for all intents and purposes, completed, and therefore some souls either decide to go, they choose one of the termination junctures, or they've finished their life plan close to the fifth termination juncture, and therefore the life plan is terminated at the same time. So they go all at the same time. But with dementia, the soul is sort of gradually moving out of the way. The aspect is sort of gradually departing, because he may have satisfied the goals or the requirements of its life plan, and may have decided to stay a bit longer, or may just be staying longer for those individuals who it's become associated with in this particular incarnation, such as its partner, such as its family members. And so there's a desire to go and go back to the energetic, but there's also a desire to stay. And so what happens is that the sentience that is associated with the particular incarnate human vehicle sort of gradually migrates slowly through like an underlying desire to go home, whereas on the other side of the fence we've still got this issue about wanting to be here, wanting to stay incarnate. So you get this dichotomy where there's still a link with the human form, the incarnate human vehicle, but there's a desire from the incarnate aspect or soul to basically go back to the energetic and go back to its level of communion with its true energetic self. And so that's what happens. The soul doesn't need to be here, doesn't really want to be here, but feels an honour of duty, so to speak, to be here for those who are they feel are dependent upon them being there, for confidence reasons, for emotional reasons, and basically for creating that or maintaining that family unit reasons as well. So dementia is really, in a nutshell, the soul or the incarnate aspect gradually moving away from the incarnation, and rather than going in one go, either through a disease, illness, accident, or just the longevity of the vehicle, the human vehicle, just ending basically its function, finishing, breaking down, and no longer being functional. So it's really about understanding that the soul is departing slowly, and the focus is when we go and see a friend or a colleague or a parent or a partner that's got dementia, and we haven't seen them for some time. For instance, if they're in a care facility and we go, they suddenly wake up. So a part of the sentience comes back to meet us, comes back down the Hara line, that little energetic tube which maintains the connectivity between the incarnate aspect and the true energetic self. It comes down there and basically greets us, so to speak. It doesn't, from a human perspective, it doesn't feel that way, but from the soul or the aspect, it would say, "Oh, I've got to be here for them." So we come back down again, and it's only when there's a period of existence experienced by that particular incarnate aspect has been achieved, for instance time, that individual starts to become part of the background, that they think, "Oh, well, they know I'm here now, so I can start to drift back." And that's when we start to lose the focus of the individual, and this sort of lack of personality, lack of understanding, the vacant look in the eyes of the individual with dementia starts to become prevalent as well. So dementia is really, again in summary, a condition where the soul has decided it wants to go, but feels some sort of honour of duty to hang around a bit longer for those individuals who expect them to be there, basically. And the result is that the sentience that is required to animate the human form and give it personality is not always there, and sometimes isn't there. And so you can see you can actually see a link between dementia and being in a coma, actually, because in the extreme cases of dementia, the body is just alive. From a human perspective, it's alive, although it's not really animated or interactive in a correct way, in a way that is applicable to and associated with a full level of connectivity from an aspect. And so you see people with dementia just sitting there, the vacant look on their faces. And this is almost the same as being in a coma, because actually, although in a coma, in general, comas can be can be contained or maintained by a very small percentage of sentience. In general, a lot of comas are maintained by medical and mechanical means, and so again you get this lack of connectivity there. And rather than having the eyes open with a vacant stare, which because there's nobody there, there's very little sentience there, the eyes are generally closed. So a coma and and dementia are almost identical in terms of what's going on. The soul or the incarnate aspect isn't in the body, or isn't in the body fully, so to speak. Okay, so when you see somebody with dementia, just recognise that they really aren't all there, because they're not. The sentience and the energy that is associated with that body is mostly gone. And you can give them the opportunity to go if you want to. You can give them the permission to go. So rather than perpetuating this condition where they're sort of sometimes here and sometimes not here, moving backwards and forwards between the body, which actually is something that we do anyway when we first associate ourselves with a human form in the fetus or in the embryonic state, for instance, and when the body is first born. And you know, we do the same thing, whether we're first born or whether we're in dementia state, we're about to leave the body. So we're backwards and forwards all the time. So really and truly, just give these people the permission to go. So when you see them with, you know, as a certain age, and it can be any age really, it can be from, you know, middle 40s or even late 30s up to 80s, 90s, and in the hundreds. If you see somebody that's got dementia and you know them, you can just say to them, you know, you don't need to hang around. You can go back to your true energetic self, or you can go back home if you want to use those words instead, and that will give them more incentive to go and detach the energy, the animating energy from the human form, removing it from the Tantien and the rest of the sentience from the soul seat, and bringing it back towards the core star, and then move it back up the Hara line back into communion with the true energetic self, and the body will demise accordingly. Okay, so if you see anybody with dementia, just recognise it's because their soul isn't fully integrated with the body, and it's probably finished its life plan and is feeling no reason to be here other than to provide consolation or confidence, or the need to be there for others who are part of the family unit. That's it. Okay, so that's what dementia is all about. It's about the soul leaving the body, but not quite leaving the body. Let's have a look at the questions we've got. We've got quite a lot of questions actually, so we've got lots to go through, lots to do. There's a lot from FM and a lot from JM today. Thank you very much for your questions. I'll try and get through them as swiftly as possible, because there's quite a lot here. The first question is, I understand that when we are born, let's say in Asia, and later in life we move to another continent, let's say America, it interferes with our life plan, or it interferes with our ability to excel or grow because different programming is required, i.e. culturally, language skills, etc. Is this true? If not, would that hinder our growth or abilities in our incarnated life, or is that part of our life planning? To move around the planet is sometimes part of the life plan, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's circumstantial, and sometimes it's an additional requirement that we've got if we've met the challenges, the goals associated with our life plan. So sometimes it can interfere with the life plan, sometimes it's additional to the life plan, and sometimes it's part of the life plan. So it's not really much of an issue. It's in terms of we need to deal with things as we deal with them. I mean, certainly my current partner's moved around the planet quite a lot. I've moved around the planet quite a lot, but not from a home perspective. And the location I'm in now is my second home. My first home was basically in one particular city for a long time. For most of my life, in effect, and where I am now is in a different city, on the same island, but in a different country within that island. If you want to understand that, so it's sort of dealing with things as it becomes appropriate, and recognising that some things, even though they might not be part of our life plan, may be added to the plan because we may have got to the point where we've dealt with most of the major aspects of that life plan or those goals. Okay, Next question is, in the dialogues you wrote from birth to 1 year, or year one, also the chakras and the auric field are not entirely developed at this point in the incarnation, which results in the aspect having limited energetic functionality and personal protection from energetic attack of any kind. When others ask you about energetic attack, you disregard their existence by commenting that once we are energetically of a higher vibration, it should not matter. Okay, yeah. That still does not respond to the fact that it exists, and you are confirming that in your writing. What are they? What are these energetic attacks? Where do they come from? Who plans these attacks and for what purpose? Can I clarify their roots and purpose? How often do we need to clean, or what could we do for our protection when we are still working to reach higher vibrations and thus are prone or susceptible to such attacks? Well, energetic attacks come from everywhere. They can be from astral entities, which are either self-created through what you would call Darwinian evolution of energies, where similar or sympathetic energies group together, and they group together in clumps or islands of energies, and they sort of gradually gravitate towards other clumps or islands of similar or same energies, and then they start to have limited intelligence and actively seek those energies of the similar or same frequency or energy out as well, creating a much bigger energy and increasing the intelligence. And to a certain point, though, they can achieve this, but sometimes they get to a point where they can't maintain their own energies, and therefore the intelligence sort of dissipates. And so to do that, they need to find an energy source, and we're a very good energy source, specifically if we're open. And so they find that they can get energy from us to perpetuate their own existence. And when this happens, there's sometimes a symbiotic relationship that happens. They give us feelings of power, ability to coerce people, or be successful in certain ways in a way that allows us to sort of justify giving them energy, so to speak. And we do this in a very sort of background way. We don't understand we're doing it from a human perspective, and so we sort of sometimes feed astral entities. So they want to come into us as soon as they can, because the younger we are, the less protected we are, and so the infant and the younger child will wants to be in the energies of the mother, because the mother's energy system and auric layers, which the auric layers are a byproduct of the energies that we use to create and animate the human form, but they're still quite protective from that perspective, a little like the atmosphere is on the Earth. Allows the baby to be protected by being inside the energies of the mother, so these entities can't attack them. Also, some of these entities are created by us not liking somebody or wishing somebody ill, and so we can inadvertently create these things by simply our desire or our intention or want to create or give somebody harm or ill thoughts. And this is enough to sort of create this opportunity for these energies to group together based upon the intention behind the individual who wants to create an ill thought process or wish somebody ill, so to speak, because they don't like them or because they've done something wrong to them. So the astral entities can be created by natural evolution, so to speak, and through us. But also, a lot of individuals throw energy at each other. If you go into an environment, for instance, where you feel the energy is not right and you walk out, that's because there's people who are throwing energy at each other. If you meet an individual who you find adversarial, you'll find that their energy, you don't like being with them. They feel very nasty to you. Their energy feels sharp. That's because they're throwing energy at you. The energy can be coercive energy, it can be sort of direct attacks like lightning, or it can be hooking energy, or it can be like sucking energy from you as well. So basically, energetic attacks come from human beings directly, human beings indirectly by using astral entities or other individuals to do it, or it can come through the astral entities themselves. Okay. So that's how energetic attacks come from and where they come from. In actual fact, the Psychic Shield, which was created and is available as a correspondence course on my website, and I'm doing it now as a day-long workshop as well, is designed to protect the unprotected, because some people are naturally protected because of their energy and their personality and their sentience and their evolution as well. and background lack of desire to connect with some of these things. So basically they're naturally protected or naturally powerful, whereas others aren't. Okay, so in my perspective, I disregard these entities because they just can't touch me, and I know they can't touch me. I don't let them touch me. Whereas others who are less forthright in their thought processes might have an issue with it and might get connected or attacked in that way. Okay. Next question. I think it's in the Dialogues on page 4408. So that'll be a Kindle page number. I wrote, the life plan is therefore riddled with interactive contracts between aspects that serve the function of ensuring that the chosen experiences are presented to the incarnate aspect by those other incarnate aspects that are working around it in the same environment as it is, that have agreed to present them. This, of course, is reciprocated. This means that we contract with other aspects while incarnated. Could we revoke part of our contracts? Let's say we married and got the divorce, and the difficulties we faced brought a lot of lessons and experiences. Now we would like to move on. Could we place our intent and announce that by saying, I am a sovereign being, and exercise my intent, and will revoke my contract with X, hence the forthwith? Does that work? And if not, why not? Why our will and intent? Why is our will and intent not enough? The best way to revoke a contract, generally, if something's happened to us, the contract's been fulfilled. If it's continuing, maybe that contract hasn't been fulfilled in totality. But we can move away from, if we feel we've learnt enough, we can use our intention to move away from the interaction with another individual. And we can actively terminate it by forgiving that individual and forgetting and sending them love, and then desiring no longer to interact with that individual. And we can do this through meditation or through focused interaction with ourselves, and creating a mantra if you want to do it in that way. And so we can in fact move away from a particular interaction with a particular individual if we feel we no longer need to. So the other thing is, it could be part of our life plan to recognise that we no longer need to interact with this individual, and this point at which we have decided we no longer need to interact with that individual, and we decide to forgive and forget them, could be the point at which we are severing karma or a previous link with them in a previous incarnation. So we have to think of it in these sorts of terms, recognising and understanding that in essence we can, with our intention, change what appears to be a cyclic interaction with an individual in a certain environment, and terminate it as we want to, provided it feels right. And if it feels right, then it should do. Next question, again in the Dialogues, I feel, in page 4426, you wrote that guides and helpers use the Akashic to validate the optimal junctures of insertion and the intensity of intervention required. How could Akashic Records validate for our helpers' assistance with our life plan? Many people say they can read the Akashic Records. What do they access? Does Akashic Records have history of the aspect, incarnation or more? If more, what are they? Does Akashic Records hold the complete blueprint of our life plan when incarnated? Does Akashic Records keep records belonging to an aspect of tests separately? Or the Akashic Records hold test records of all of its aspects in one bundle? How they're categorised, where they're held, whoever sees it. Dolores Cannon discusses this and she said Akashic Records are held in a building. Was that metaphoric or simplified for us as incarnate individuals? Can I elaborate? I can elaborate to as much as I can give you the information I know. The Akashic Records are simply a memory set within the source that are associated with those individual souls or aspects that incarnate in the human form. So it's a location within the source, and how we interact with that is based upon how we feel we can interact with it. If Dolores wants to use it as a repository of knowledge, like a library, then that's fine. But basically, it's a location where everything that has happened, will happen, could happen, should happen, has happened, may happen, will happen, is happening all concurrently. And so the guide and helpers, because we exist